Hey, so welcome into Philadelphia Walks PTSD. My name is Sharon Cole, or Sharon or Cole, whatever you want to refer to me as, no big deal. I've been called everything under the sun: rat, pig, horse, cow, dog, dinosaur, lizard, hippopotamus, rhino, and so forth and so on. And in a good way, don't care. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words shall never hurt me, as they say out there in the world. Of course, words do hurt people, especially when there's certain signals, mannerisms, expressions, gestures, and so forth and so on added into the mix to exclude someone or make someone feel like they're not up to par according to your standard or whatever. So anyway, we're here on day 141 of my one video each day, 365-day campaign raising money for a life lost, stolen, tortured, raped, and so much more to extreme, bizarre, seemingly sophisticated harassment. If you were to know how to do it, it probably wouldn't be that sophisticated. Some people just know how to sort of, always communicate with someone in an overly sassy or like a negative sassy way, so that you're always questioning and wondering. It's a form of abuse in a lot of cases. But it can get way more sophisticated even than that. And this has to do with something that started the fourth Monday of January 2011. I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment. It was a series of orchestrated events that created that experience, if you will. I had to learn that people actually are orchestrated and live in orchestrated communities. And there are people whose entire lives have been orchestrated, and less natural and more like everything's planned communities and so forth and so on. And they would be used to this sort of behavior, but some people took orchestrated communities to a whole new level or to the hilt in order to torture someone. And with that said, who set the stage for that very first night, and who keeps setting stages for little bursts or implosions against a targeted individual? In my case, me, and this does happen to other people. It could be as small, even though it's a big deal, but it could be as small as workplace bullying, where people are pushed out of a workplace and everybody needs to make a living. It could be, real estate companies or property management companies, and people are pushed out or imploded. They're like, it would be called like turning the screws on a person or putting someone in the boiling pot. There's like a very specific term. They have old terms for this because it's been going on for eons, except today, in modern times, you can use technology to aid in the terrorization of someone. And that could be scheduling even at a yoga studio, and they would know when you're working in order to pull something off, or they could switch things up so that you're confused. Like, oh, they would already know in advance that it's confusing, that on Tuesdays they open early, Wednesdays they don't, even though they have certain teachers. And they will play with new people who come into a yoga studio, say, to work for free yoga. And they'll play all kinds of games, even when you're thinking, well, yoga is all about, sort of achieving, not perfection, but achieving a level of dietary perfection, or it's a practice of being at one with the universe or God or your gods or what have you. And that means very good hygiene, respecting your body to the ultimate. You show up at a yoga studio and they're bringing in chocolates and stuff that's not even non-GMO, like cheese curls, gummy bears. Absolutely not. That is not in the image of yoga as it was intended to be taught from any originator of yoga. And there is something to be said for respecting the body. It helps you respect yourself more. It is an actual growth, spiritual, and some people would say ascension practice. So if you keep doing things that don't line up with what people thought they were paying for or working for, then it messes you up. You see what I mean? Now, some things seem really small. Whatever happened the fourth Monday of January 2011 wasn't small at all. That is a very big deal that this was set up. It is highly illegal. It is against human rights at all costs. I know there are people out there who didn't even think of human rights. Human rights is an actual thing. It was an actual major crime. How do you prove it? I don't know, especially in a liberal city like Philadelphia, where people will believe that, they must have had to do something on purpose for some reason. You can't do that. And everybody's lining up and falling in line or buying into, you can't take over someone's life and play God. You can't go in and kidnap someone from their apartment, shove them in a van, and then take them off to rehab. That is highly illegal. It is one thing to maybe say, we're going to have a meeting, we're staging an intervention, or you have to let a person know it is against human rights to abduct someone, per se. In my case, it's almost like an invisible abduction. The people are so cowardly, they made sure they weren't overly seen. But they did know how to make me feel like I'd be murdered in my apartment. I more than 100% believed that I'd be murdered in my apartment. I thought it was the last night of my life. And then after that, I knew my life changed on a dime. I did have that experience. My life changed on a dime. One day it was like this. The next day it was like that. That's it. You will now be, I knew from the gods, which they aren't, above, you will now adapt to this situation. Your life will never be the same ever again. That would turn someone into a shooter normally. I had to learn a lot of things. And we had, I thought I'd be murdered that night. I called my sister first. She convinced me to call the police after saying, can you put your chair under the door? To make sure no one could actually break into your door. I wrote a book, Duplicity, Dress, Stop Factories in the Making. There's a whole series of events that evening that unfolded to make me believe someone was coming up through the basement of a row home converted to apartments building. I was in the front half, first floor apartment. A million things to talk about. Even after that, my bed I would think that it was my bed vibrating. After everything kicked off, for about 2 years, I would wake up like this. I thought my bed was vibrating. Someone else said, what if it was you, in some weird, vibrational state, you were actually shaking, but you thought it was your bed. I thought they were, I was like, is this someone rigged my bed to be like a hotel bed where you can put quarters in and it vibrates? I'm in the basement a year later, I had the guts to go down to I didn't even want to go down to the basement. And for a year, I was afraid to even go down there because it's all creepy anyway. But especially if you thought that someone was going to come up through the basement to murder you. But a year into living there, the landlord decided to put in laundry, and that would eventually have me going down to the basement to see what it looked like. And I didn't. You could keep your things in the basement. I never did. The people behind me did. But over time, I think I brought 1 or 2 things down there when I knew I'd probably be moving out. I forget how it worked. Actually, I never had anything down there. I think maybe I put my bike down there in the end because I couldn't take my bike with me when I moved, and I decided I would just leave it. But anyway, and it was a forced move, but this was 8 years later, if we count 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, and most of 2017. So 7 years later. Anyway, someone had to set the stage for that evening. It involved the fourth Monday of January 2011. I actually called my sister, oddly. We didn't always talk, but I called her in regards to, well, a lot of things. But one thing that came up was a guy from Delaware who worked for the government in various capacities, but had somehow worked for the Pentagon, but also served with the Bush administration. He was found dead in the Cherry landfill. This is not Cherry Hill, New Jersey. This would be Delaware's Cherry landfill. And that's where they dump a lot of electronics and robotic things, dishwashers, washers and dryers. That would be the graveyard for those kinds of things until whatever they do with that material, break it down into scrap metal. I have no idea what they do with that kind of stuff. He was found there after being seen on camera, after the police, did their investigation, and he was on camera acting very strangely, taking off his shoes in a Delaware garage. This would be like Wilmington, Delaware. They say he was on drugs and hired a prostitute or something like that. So I don't know if someone saw him as trash and got rid of the trash and put him in the, popped your cherry landfill. I don't know. And would those people be correct if they had assumed that? You see what I mean? So anyway, I don't know what to say. I will say in my case, it did feel like some sort of vigilante justice, as if there was an uprising of people who decided they didn't like certain people, even though I was really quiet and sweet. I was kind of on the more progressive side. I was in the LGBT community. I had a couple tattoos. I was thinking about getting into green juicing and all this other stuff. I couldn't imagine anyone like disliking me that much unless they were LGBTQ haters. But I was so like middle of the road and nondescript-ish per se, and on the cute side of, oh, she's basically a normal person who's trying to expand her network and friends. Some people think friends is too immature sounding, but people do still look for supportive people in their lives at every stage of life, regardless of where you are. You move to a new community, you look for people who are going to be a support system so that you're not totally alone. That would be normal. I struggled with that because I moved to the city by myself. I didn't really know anyone except for one editor who used to work in Delaware who told me about this workplace where I wound up working when I first moved here. Her name was Donna Loyal. And we didn't hang out that much, but she recommended coming up to Philadelphia, or she dangled it, or she called and said, hey, do you want to move to Philadelphia and be a writer up here or be an editor up here? And that's what brought me up from Delaware to Philadelphia to begin with. Kind of a godsend because Delaware was kind of in sort of a hurting state in general. I couldn't figure out where to work. But I will say this, I do think I have some bizarre experience in life where I work places and things will bubble up to a point of like, I can't put up with people because there's a lot of immature, uncool people out there, even in workplaces like credit card banks or yoga studios, and wherever, and here in Philly in general. But this was a very specifically staged event, and I know it was. How you prove that? I don't know, especially in a city where it could be that people are told in an invisible way. They wouldn't even realize why. They just comply with the standards here. I did call police. They came out. They kind of acted like they were on an Andy Griffith show and kicking stones. Well, we don't know. There's a van up here. It looks like it's a UPenn van. There was a van idling outside my apartment. There was ruckus in front of my apartment. My laptop turned on all by itself, which startled me because I had that jingle and everything. And a bunch of things happened. But anyway, after I called my sister and the police, I then called some friends who lived kind of zigzag around the corner from me. And I got over there and they started saying things that were eerily reminiscent or overly coincidental to what my sister said in conversation on the phone, as if they could hear my phone. It would make me believe that my phone was tapped, but I had a cell phone at the time. And I had a Palm smartphone. It was the first smartphone I had ever had. But while I was being terrorized all these years, I went back to a flip phone to avoid all the coincidental things that would happen on a smartphone. So everything was too much. Overstimulation, overly timed correspondence to creep people out, to creep me out. But when I got over there to Steph and Meg's, and I wondered if they were part of setting the stage of what started, Steph would be the daughter of someone who worked in the military, I believe. She had a brother who ran like the mounted police in another city, which would be the Horse Police Department. She and her girlfriend, or I don't know if they wound up getting married, wife, wound up moving to Portland, Oregon. There's a lot more to that story, but I wondered if they were part of setting the stage because they started to behave oddly leading up to this event where it would like destabilize your confidence or trust in your friends. And it's like, that's odd they said that. But, when you live long enough, you kind of experience people as being fickle or having their own journeys. So you're like, well, maybe who knows what's going on there. It's more about them. It's not about me. Like you have to stop personalizing things so much. But in retrospect, I do think they were part of setting the stage. They entered my life about 2.5 years prior to that evening. And I think they were part of an intel group or a special group of people who would know how to do certain things. The problem is, I felt incredibly dehumanized by them. They behaved as if they were on the Truman Show movie. I go in there and they almost reiterated what my sister had said on the phone, like, do you have a stick to put up under the door? Then I wanted to leave all of a sudden because they were too weird. And one of them was taking a shower because they were taking turns taking showers to get ready for work. And the partner, who I didn't like as much as the other one who was in the shower, she's like, don't go, Sharon. But she was overly dramatic, as if she were on the Truman Show. Don't go. And I was like, I needed to leave. Anyway, a whole night unfolded of me calling my sister again. A whole bunch of things happened. The next day, I would call my mom and get, we're sorry, the phone number you're trying to reach has been disconnected. Which that never in my entire life have I called either of my parents and gotten that message of the phone line has been disconnected. My mom was living with my aunt at the time, and magically their landline phone line had been cut from the back of the house, and they had to have the phone company come out, and the phone company was coming out on the day that I'd be running around in circles after having been scared out of my apartment the night before. Picked up my sister, brought her back. Like, I basically, bullied her or demanded, I usually would ask. I never would ask anything of my sister, but I basically hounded her to come, for me to drive down, pick her up, and come back and walk dogs with me all day. Like, she really didn't have a choice, basically. That's how scared I was, and I would never do that to anyone. But anyway, long story short, someone set the stage for the fourth Monday of January 2011. They are in hot water big time if they're ever found out. And you can't do that. You can't play God with someone's life. You can't, there was no consent. I didn't sign up for anything. But it's in the realm of, like, as if it's like the movie called The Game with Sean Penn and Michael Douglas. It's very much like that, except I never signed up for a special experience, but this was a special experience. Since then, I've had other places seemingly set things up, and it's very bizarre and immature to watch them in action. I've been at a yoga studio, and, I don't know what to say. I don't know if anyone's an adult any longer, or if they think that they're part of a high intel, but it's fake-ish, and it would be like people projecting and desperately wishing they were part of a higher level community that does things. But does a higher level community drill a hole in their bathroom to see who says anything and then negate that person, like, oh, the hole's been there forever, under the toilet next to your left side, just big enough for a camera, 2 cameras. Oh, well, just leave it. Don't, it's been there forever. See how that negates a person's, like, reality and puts you in a place of, well, anytime there's a hole from another space in a building into your bathroom, it needs to be patched up or covered up or filled in or what have you. People are taking showers in this bathroom. They're using the bathroom. They're naked. They're pulling down their pants in this bathroom. And managers and supervisors of a certain yoga studio are acting like it's no big deal. That's to drive someone crazy. It's crazy making. It's gaslighting, crazy making. This is old school stuff for very immature people who think they either think they're supposed to do it, or they just love the idea of trying to drive someone crazy. Don't worry, I reported all of them to the police, to the FBI, and the CIA. Okay, so stop setting stages, because one day you might pay the price in a way you don't want to. Okay, have a great day. Day 141.